We are going to follow a course pretty soon, so you just, there's a big banner. People are going to be carrying that banner, so you just follow the people with the orange vests, give you all the direction you need, and we'll see you at the ledge.
Every time we speak up, and every time we rally, we bring doubts about this process among the people in Canada and right across North America. Every time we speak and protest, there are cracks in this agenda. Every time Michael and the committee here in Winnipeg organizes another rally, we inform more people about the devastation of this whole agenda, which, as you know, in short form is about continental integration. It is about an attack on Canada's sovereignty. It is about a process that is being run by the big corporate entities on this continent, and it has the potential, without any kind of democratic approval, for destroying our life or preventing us from furthering our agenda for social justice.
Hey, hey. Ho, ho. We all have the right to know. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. We all have the right to know. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. We all have the right to know. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. We all have the right to know. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. We all have the right to know.
Loud now. When they
This agreement that's being negotiated behind closed doors must be brought out in public. It is not right that 30 corporations, or however many, get access to the government and that the public does not. Yes, corporations need access to government and need their needs to be met, but the public has to be paramount, and our needs must be met. When General Motors goes to negotiate and says, well, we need roads so our cars can travel and we can sell the cars, well, we also need public transit. So there is a value in democratic debate and democratic discussion that leads to a good society, and that's why this issue must be brought out in the public, and many more people need to hear about it. Thank you.
All right!
Canada is a net exporter of oil, but it still imports 40% of its oil, 850 million barrels a day, to meet 90% of Atlantic Canada and 40% of Ontario's needs. And so we're exporting oil to Canada, to the United States, where they're the largest, they import more oil from us than anywhere else in the world, including Saudi Arabia. And what are we doing? We're importing oil into Ontario, Quebec, and other provinces because we haven't got enough oil from our country to ship to them because we're shipping it to the U.S. Many of Eastern Canadians heat their homes with oil. Western Canada cannot supply all Eastern Canada's needs because NAFTA, the previous agreement, SPP has been called NAFTA on steroids, reserves Canadian oil for American security and supply. Canada now exports 63% of oil it produces and 56% of its natural gas, and it's doing this to the United States. And we have no choice because it was built into NAFTA. It's called the Proportionality Agreement. The Mexicans, when they signed up to NAFTA, actually could avoid the proportionality. It's only we that have locked ourselves in ways that even the Mexicans could resist. Those shares are locked in by NAFTA. The real danger, of course, is not simply oil and natural gas. Will bulk water be next? Will we lock ourselves in with an SPP to essentially exporting our water in state proportionality to the Americans and lose our autonomy and our control? So the state will step in and say, we don't want to do this, but we'll sign on to NAFTA, and unless we break NAFTA or SPP, we won't be able to resist this. We're basically tying ourselves in deep integration way with the Americans. In 2001, Canadian industry reported the release of 18 million kilograms of known carcinogens into our air, water, and soil. Canada is about, if SPP would go through, to harmonize its regulations, setting limits for pesticide residues on fruits and vegetables. In 40% of the cases, the Americans allow more herbicides and pesticides, carcinogens, in their food. And if we harmonize, we'll have that level of carcinogens in our food. And so the idea is not to raise the bar here in terms of the environment. The idea is to lower the bar. Council of Canadians just took a survey of Canadians right before this new summit in New Orleans. And here's what Canadians told us in this survey. 89% of Canadians want an energy policy guaranteeing Canadian supply, protecting the environment, even if it means placing restrictions on exports and foreign ownership of Canadian supplies. 88% want a comprehensive national policy that bans bulk water exports of fresh water and recognizes water as a basic human right, as you all know.
Yeah!
87% of Canadians agree Canada should set its own independent environmental, health, and safety standards, even if it might reduce cross-border trade with the United States. By the way, the Europeans are becoming much, much stricter in terms of environmental carcinogens. They're beginning to ban hundreds and hundreds of them. And so there could be a real trade problem between Canada and the United States and Europe. One of the things we could do, of course, build an alliance to form progressive environmental countries like the European Union, so we wouldn't necessarily have to suffer trade losses. It's just we wouldn't be trading with the environmentally damaging Americans. Of course, we're just as bad as they are. That assumes we make some changes up here. 86% of Canadians agree that the SPP should be debated in the House of Commons and submitted to a parliamentary vote. And so because the SPP label has brought them trouble because people are turning out in Winnipeg and other places around the country, they still want it really, really badly. But the trouble is we're also resisting it. And it's giving them trouble, so the question is, what do they call it next? And how do they accomplish this without us sort of turning out like this? And so the SPP, in name, could be done. But the deep integration agenda is most definitely continuing. Resistance is not futile, but essential. Thank you.
And there's a book that was recently written called Blessed Unrest, about the largest movement in the history of the earth. And it's the social and environmental movement that currently exists. And the subtitle of the book is How It Came to Be and Why No One Saw It Coming. And the title, Blessed Unrest, refers to the nature of that movement. And he said, the author of it is a fellow named Paul Hawkins, who himself owned a $100 million business at one time. Sold it and started giving talks about environmentalism and sustainability. But anyway, what he said in there is that this movement, which is the largest movement on earth, and probably has 1 million different organizations, and he said there are two aspects to this movement that are important. The first is, and it's shared everywhere, and he's traveled all over the world, and he's talked to people all over the world, and he says the two things that they share are, one is that life is sacred, and two, a belief in the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself. And that ought to be the core of any planning that human beings do, whether it comes out of City Hall, this legislature, or New Orleans. So we need to find a way to cultivate the dream and promote those ethics and values. And remember that if that's not being done anywhere, it's good to say that's not what we want and not what we need. Thank you.
I'm aware that most of you of what a struggle it is to make sure that we continue to get the Canada that we want. A fair, progressive, egalitarian, and inclusive country. We're on the way, but of course, we're not there. So we've been hearing today about secret meetings and secret committees. I understand that there's 20 such secret committees working feverishly now to integrate rules and regulations of one kind or another. This would include the Canada-US security agreements of 2002, 22 articles of security to which we still have had no access, but we do know that one or more of those articles made the story of Mayor Aurora possible. A second would be just a couple of months ago, the middle of February, when the much talked about in some circles civil assistance plan allowing U.S. troops into Canada was signed, the details of which we cannot discuss because we do not know. I'd just like to point out to you as a journalist that the corporate press, which is indeed a free press for those who own one, cannot, by Constitution, deliver unbiased coverage of commercial matters. Because, of course, in commercial media, as you may have noticed, trade trumps everything. And it explains why the story of integration by stealth has joined a great list of missing stories alongside the long overdue story of the abandonment of Aboriginal peoples in this country, and of course, the fraudulent nature of the war on drugs. So the drive for honest debate, public debate, must be citizen-driven in the case of the Security and Prosperity Partnership. That means talking, writing, blogging, and relentless vigilance over media coverage, and more particularly the lack of media coverage and constant feedback, saying to people that we still live in a small town. We're lucky in that way. We still live in a small town. We still have access to individual media people. It means asking the right questions, or asking them to ask the right questions. Security for whom, prosperity for whom, a partnership between whom. We must answer these things. It also means putting individual stories into context in the letters to the editor. When you see something and you can make the connection, you must make that connection that a corporate journalist is unable to do. We have to make absolutely sure that they get over their self-centered false pride and work together to bring Canadians into the debate over their own future. And this is not negotiable. Thank you very much. It means I am of the spirit, yes.